Hello my fellow gamers and welcome to my SimCity video tutorials. In this video I will be talking about zoning residential, commercial and industry. I will also continue my talk about roads because roads, as you can see this network here we built in the last video, are very interconnected with zoning and they are also very connected with your resources. So if you haven't seen my previous two videos, which are about planning your resources and your roads, you should watch those two first and then come back and continue with this one. Now before we can even start zoning, we have to look at our road connections that we made last time. These streets that connect to these avenues I placed randomly just so I could talk to you about the placement of roads and how you want to make your sims go in which direction. So for now I'm going to have to first delete these roads in order to be able to set them up properly for a normal setup, which should allow you to have medium density later on without having too much to destroy or rearrange. Now, since this avenue is coming up from this bridge and all the way to here, I want to divide this so I can have on both sides of the street enough room for a high density building. Now, I can just try and pick a spot and try to hit the right marker, but there is an easier way. A high density building is about as wide as three of these same colored trees. Three trees. So if you are going to look for the brown one, you need to count 1 brown, 2 brown, 3 brown. That means that between these two browns there is enough room for a road and a high density building on the side of that road. Now let's see how we can make this work. I need a street here in the middle and I need a high density line of buildings on the right side of it and on the left side of it, and they're all going to go and use that street to go into this avenue and go down to the city. So what I need to do is first look how much space do I need to go from this edge of the map, since these hills here don't seem to be even. I'm probably not gonna be able to get a high density building farther than this line. So I'm going to look at which tree is on this line. I can see that on this side I also could have problems getting high density. So I'm going to pick this green tree. I'm going to draw a line that's going to tell me that this is straight enough for a high density building to develop, which means I'm going to count 3 green trees to the left. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to pull a street down, hold shift for it to be straight, let go. Now I am 100% sure that I'm going to have enough space here to get a high density building. Now if I go to zoning and pick residential, I can see that I even have some breathing room, which is okay because these are hills, they're not even, and I would rather have some empty space than not being able to develop later on. On the other side of the street, I can also see that I have enough room for a high density building. You know that you have enough room if the second line, the line on the left that is away from the road, is bright green. If it's dark green, then you are not having enough space to develop later on to high density. Now that I have made sure that I have enough space down here, I want to look up here. If I use this same spot and make this is kind of 4-way street, even though the left side is a dead end, I see that on the left I'm not going to be able to have enough room for a high density building because of the tunnel. On the right I am going to have enough, maybe not right here, but later on there's going to be enough. So I'm going to just expand this and go up. On this left side I can do the same thing. Since we have just seen how far this high density building is going to go, we know that we can get the other one to start to end about here and start about here. So let's count. 1, 2, 3. Will I have enough space on the left? 1, 2, 3. Which means I can go in this middle tree. I will have high density buildings on the right and on the left. Sometimes you simply have to ignore these lines that the road guides are telling you because you know better. Now, should we continue this way and just be able to have one row just like we have over here? Now, we could do that, or we could listen this time to these guidelines and go to the left. But as you can see, what he's telling me is that I'm gonna go a bit more to the left, the more I go up, and I'm probably at one point not going to have enough room for high density. So to make sure that I will have enough room, I'm just going to follow my own guide. And now I have connected with this part, which you know with what I told you in the previous video, that these people, hopefully, are going to go into this tunnel, which is going to be connected like this, but let's see, yes, and they're going to work down here. They're not going to go from here all the way through here, through here, through here, through here, and go over this place to a coal mine, hopefully. This is the entire point of dividing these avenues and funneling your sims into avenues and roads which you want them to use. Now we can see how are we going to zone this. We could just use control and zone this entire area here. Now what you need to remember is that in this game, forget what you did in SimCity 4, you cannot divide commercial from residential. There's just too much traffic that you get from that. If you put commercial up here, and let's say you want it just to be in the center, and these sims that would live up here would come here, these sims would come here. What you get is a huge amount of workers that are going to go from here and here into these buildings to work. But also next to them are going to be driving shoppers that are going to be coming out from the same buildings to go and shop there. That means at the same time you're going to have the double amount of traffic. You do not wish shoppers to go in cars. You do not wish for workers to go in cars. You want as few cars on your streets as you can get. That is why you have to think about where in here do you want to put at least a little bit of commercial so they do not have to drive. They can just walk. So you are going to just delete 2 of these on each side, and you're going to use it for commercial. Now later on, as you go to high and medium and then high density, these lines are not gonna stay the same. For example, for now, if we develop a building here, it's gonna be very small and take only a little bit of space. But later on, if it needs to develop, and let's say if it's low wealth, this might even be enough space for it. But if it's medium wealth, it's probably gonna ask just a little bit more space. But that's no problem. Once you have housing, you can just simply eliminate a piece of this zoning and zone it with something else. That way you can control which size of the building is going to show up. Now I want to bring this back to this. Now all the sims that are going to live here are going to come down here and shop, and they're going to also come down here and work. But they're not going to use cars because it's so close they can walk. Now why have I zoned on these avenues if I have told you previously never zone on avenues? Because at the start of the game you're just going to have maybe 5 or 6 sims living in these houses. That's not too much traffic and you don't have to worry about it. But once they build these buildings here, you can simply unzone, and the next time they increase in density, they can only increase in density here or here. Now I have also told you previously that you can control which side of the street a building is going to develop, since we have made enough space here for this to be high density, this here to be high density, this here and this here. We have no need to unzone, let's say this, and just make these buildings go over here, because they're not gonna go from here up to here. They're not that big. They're just gonna stay on this side. As you can see, these are gonna go up to here and these are gonna go up to there. So you're going to have 4 high density blocks here, which is what you want to achieve later on in the game. So you have to plan ahead, even though you're playing right now for low density, probably low wealth, but you have to plan ahead and leave enough room for high density, because once you start deleting roads, you're gonna start deleting buildings that are on those roads. Once you delete those buildings, you're gonna want to put some other buildings, and then you might wanna need some other roads, and that is going to screw up the entire placement of your city. That is why you have to do something like this. Now for the start of my city, I'm just going to use a few industry buildings because I'm not going to have enough money to start this drilling operation here or the coal mine operation up here. So I'm just going to zone some industry right over here. All these people who want to work down there, they can go from here and down into here, which we can connect for now, and because there's not too much traffic and we don't have to worry about it, and from over here through the tunnel down here. Once we start doing some extraction and we need the workers to extract oil in the old derricks, we can simply delete these buildings, delete the road that we are going to have here for now, and who cares? Now we have another part of our city is another priority. We no longer need these buildings, so now we just delete them, and maybe later on, once I've drilled enough oil, I'll make some refineries here. So as you can see now, you have to plan ahead, but you have to plan ahead in a way that connects many gameplay elements. You have to plan ahead your resources, your water, your coal, or whatever you're going to produce. You have to plan ahead your entire road network, and you have to plan ahead how you're gonna zone and where you're gonna zone. You have to plan some things for the start of the game, which are going to be outdated later on, and you have to plan for something that's going to be totally new later on in the late game. So this is it for now. In the next video we are going to cover utilities, power, water, sewage, dump, and we are going to think about where we are going to place them. Once we are done with planning of that, we can actually start building this city in a normal mode and go to services and development of our city. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more.